Hello everyone, my name is Monica and I'm from Jam and Panther team at Prerequisites. Today, in this video, I'm going to show you how I'm balancing the load for my Panther web application using Tomcat connectors. So basically, we have two types of Tomcat connectors. First is HTTP connector and the other is AJP connector. So here I'm using AJP connectors for balancing the load. AJP stands for Apache JServe protocol, and it is typically used to allow Tomcat to communicate with Apache web server, as you can see here in this diagram. Okay, so AJP connectors are most commonly implemented in Tomcat through the plugin technology, that is mod.jk. And this functionality is typically required in high traffic production situation where Tomcat clusters are being run behind an Apache web server. And this allows the Apache server to deliver static content like HTML, CSS, or JavaScript files, and it proxies the request in order to balance the request loads effectively across the network. And it lets the Tomcat server to focus only on delivering the dynamic content like Panther application. So let's start with the configuration here. So before we move on to the configuration, we must have a Tomcat server installed and running, and the default port on which it runs is 8080. And we should also have a Apache web server, the HTTP server running, and it runs on port 80 by default. And we should also have one Panther web application running on our machine. So let's see how we configure the files. So first of all, you need to download the mod.jk module. So this module, you can get it from the Apache's website based on your Apache's version like 2.2 or 2.4, and download it and paste it to the modules directory of your document root directory of your Apache, the Apache web server where you have installed. Okay, so in next we need to add these files in Apache's httpd configuration file. As you can see here, I'm including httpd-jk.conf file, which actually defines the configuration for this mod.jk module. And as I'm using the secure connection here, so for virtual host, I'm using httpd-ssl.configuration file. So later on, I will be explaining this part, how I define the virtual host here. So let's move on to the httpd-jk.conf file. So in this file, we need to load this module which we have downloaded, mod.jk.so file. So we define here load module here for this mod.jk.so module. And then we reference the workers.properties file here. And you can also define a separate log for mod.jk here. So now let's look into this file, how it looks. So here, as you can see, I'm loading the module here and referencing the workers.properties file and the log. You can also define other things, or you can just leave it as it comes by default, the other configuration things in this httpd-jk configuration file. So now let's we have a look on workers properties file. So in this workers properties file, we need to define the worker. So here in workers list, I'm defining my app1 worker. You can give it any other name as you wish. I'm using app1 worker here. So the type is AJP 1.3. We are using the protocol. So we define this. The host name, the host name of your application, and then the port number. So here this port number is important because this should match with the port number which we are using in server.xml file. And this port will be used as a connector to Tomcat and Apache web server. So remember this port number, that this should match with this with the port number in server.xml file. Okay, so let's look on to the virtual host thing here. In httpd-jk.conf file, I'm defining a virtual host, and in this virtual host I'm including one line jk mount, so that it talks to Tomcat, and this is the alias to my application. This is a name to my application, and then I'm using app1 worker. So this is the name of my worker, as we saw in workers properties file. So this thing we need to define. We can also define custom logs here, error log and access log. So now let's look at the server.xml file. In server.xml file, you need to uncomment this block connector. Here you see the port number. So this is the connector port here, 8009. So whatever request we send through the Apache web server, it will come to this Tomcat by this port. And we need to define the protocol, the AGP 1.3 protocol here. And in the host section, you define a path to your application and the alias which we used in virtual host file here, Spider 2018. So this should match with the alias which we are giving here. So this is my application which is in Tomcat's web apps folder, and I'm giving an alias name to my application which is Spider 2018, and I'm using this in my virtual host JK mount line. Okay, so this is all we need to configure for connecting Tomcat with Apache web server. So now the URL, how do we call the URL? So as you have seen that I'm using this host name in my workers properties file, and this alias I'm using in my server.xml file, and which is mounted to my virtual host file, the SSL configuration file, and this is my screen name. So when I call this URL, as you see here, first the request comes to the Apache web server to the port 80, and then by using mod JK and the IGP connectors, the request goes to the Tomcat server to the port 8009, and then Tomcat processes that request and sends back the result in the same manner, and in the browser we get the result. So this is how we do all the configuration for balancing the load in our Panther application. So this is all about AJP protocol and the Tomcat connector. If you like this video, please click on the like button below, and please subscribe to our channel. If you have any question, please write it on the comment section below. And thanks for watching. Thank you.